Well, well, well. Hey guys, how you been? Have you guys been pretty busy lately? I have been trying so hard to find some interesting whatnot stories for us. Unfortunately, this week, we don't have a whatnot. What we do have, however, is a very gruesome true crime. Warning: the following case depicts graphic violence against women and children. Listener discretion is highly advised. What do the Midnight Assassin, the Austin Axe Murderer, the Servant Girl Murders, and the Servant Girl Annihilator all have in common? Now, if you said that they're all the same case, you would be correct. These were all the different names that were used to talk about a string of unsolved murders in Austin, Texas, from December of 1884 until December of 1885. During the course of a year, 7 women and 1 man would lose their lives, with 8 more people being seriously wounded. Let's take a look at that timeline, shall we? So the nightmare all began on Pecan Street, which is now 6th Street, on December 30th, 1884, when Molly Smith, an African American cook at the Walter Hall residence, was found murdered in the yard by the family's outhouse. An outhouse was a bathroom, just in case you were wondering. She had axe wounds to her abdomen, head, chest, legs, and arms. According to reports, there was a grisly amount of blood at the scene. A man named Walter Spencer was also wounded that night by the attacker. On March 19th, 1885, 2 Swedish servant girls by the names of Clara Strand and Christine Mortensen were seriously wounded, but survived their attack. So we went from December all the way to March without an attack. And now it's going to ramp up. Because on May 7th, 1885, Eliza Shelley, an African American cook for Dr. Lucian Johnson, was brutally murdered on Cypress Street. Now, she had been nearly decapitated from the axe. On May 23rd, 1885, Irene Cross was attacked and killed by a, quote, man with a knife, unquote. According to the reporters on the scene, Irene looked as if she had been scalped. In August 1885, Clara Dick is attacked and survives. On August 30th, 1885, Rebecca Ramey and her 11-year-old daughter Mary are brutally attacked. Rebecca survives the ordeal, But sadly, young Mary would not. I refuse to go into detail about Mary's wounds because it was truly, truly horrific what that child went through. And I say that what she went through and what she experienced because that baby suffered. She lived a couple hours after her attack. And I would not want to survive with the injuries that she had. On September 28th, 1885, Gracie Vance and Orange, Washington were attacked and killed. Once again, according to the reporters on the scene, Gracie's head looked a lot like jelly after her attack. Now, what's odd about this one is Orange, Washington was actually killed first, and then after Gracie was originally attacked, her attacker attacked two other servants that were in the home. Then he came back and finished off Gracie. On December 24th, 1885, Sue Hancock, who was well known in Austin as a refined lady, was found murdered in her backyard, which is now where the Holiday Inn is in Austin, Texas. An hour later, Miss Eula Phillips, known as one of the prettiest women in Austin, was also murdered, and her husband was seriously wounded. Now, up until these last two murders, all the victims had been African American. Most of the victims were servants. Miss Sue and Miss Eula, however, were upper class white women. Now, both of their husbands were accused of murdering them, with Mr. Phillips being found guilty and then acquitted of the charges in his wife's death. Those two murders would end a year of horror for Austin. The police kept most of the info out of the public so that when they did catch the killer, they would know for sure that it was him, a lot like how they do now. December 1885 would see a curfew put into place, as well as saloons and other businesses closing by midnight. The police force tripled in size. And during the murders, an axe was always left at the scene, and all of the victims were attacked in their beds as they slept. Now, several were dragged outside and raped before being killed and or mutilated. The attacker did not wear shoes during the attacks. This made it possible for the police to find out that he was missing his little toe on his right foot. The police interviewed 400 men. They also released 400 men. But they had two main suspects. The first was a 19-year-old African American domestic servant, which was basically a butler, named Nathan Elgin. Nathan ended up being shot and killed by police in 1886 after trying to grab a woman from a saloon and holding a knife to her. The reason he was a really good suspect was because he was missing his little toe on his right foot. The second suspect was a Malaysian cook named Maurice. No known last name. Now, he was a good contender because he worked at the Pearl House, which had connections to every single victim. He also left Austin and headed for New Orleans and then went on to London in January of 1886. Shortly after his arrival in London, a string of murders began. You guys may have heard of that killer, as they were someone that the press dubbed Jack the Ripper. Those murders ended right after Maurice left London. There's some speculation that the police believed they were dealing with a duo of killers and not just one. I'm inclined to believe that. And I also have a feeling that it was Nathan Elgin and Maurice. Nathan seemed to have a seething hatred for women. And there's not a lot of information on Maurice. But I also can't help but wonder if these were not all committed by the same person or persons, because some reports involve knives when he clearly preferred an axe. It would have been easy to use it as a cover to unalive someone. Now, I also believe it was more than one assailant, especially in the case of the last two. They didn't match victim profiles. They were upper class ladies, well respected in their circles. And also, if there was only one attacker, how did he get to the Phillips residence so fast and make such quick work of it? At that time, it was probably a 45-minute walk because it's about 6 streets away. So this case covers being a true crime, being unsolved, being the first serial killer in Texas, and being the first serial killer in America. Now, if you look that up to fact check me, it will most likely say that H.H. Holmes was the first known serial killer in America, which is true. He was the first one that we actually knew of when we called it a serial killer. But H.H. Holmes is likely the first known serial killer, whereas the Servant Girl Annihilator was probably our first unknown, unsolved serial killer case. I want to thank you all for joining me today for yet another case. I enjoy being able to bring these to you guys and saying what you guys think of them. Please be sure to follow the podcast on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. I appreciate you hanging out with me and letting me tell you about all these cases because I enjoy learning about them. If you're into video games, please find me on Twitch under TurkeyBabe33, as I have started a Twitch channel and I play mostly The Sims 4 and Fortnite. And I am now going to be having something called True Crime Tuesday and Whatnot Wednesday, where we listen to an episode of the podcast. So, if you feel up to it, come join me. But as always, stay true and whatnot. Bye, guys.